From TKC Radio, live from Atlanta, it's Serial. One story told week by week. And this is the 13th episode of Season 1 of this podcast. It's been a year since I first contacted Adnan, and I'm still talking to him regularly. This week is probably one of the exciting weeks of my life, and I'm so excited to get in today's episode. In this episode, we are wrapping up the case with all the evidence we have collected to finally point the finger at someone. It has been a long road, and we finally reached the end, and I, Carlos Perez, and all the producers believe Jay Wilds committed the crime of the murder of Heyman Lee. Let's give you all the evidence and reasons why.
January 13th, 1999. Another normal day for everyone at school except 3 students, Jay Wilds, Adnan Syed, and Heyman Lee. Today was a devastating murder so shocking that it came out of nowhere. The 2 suspects, Jay and Adnan, were taken in the next day to where Jay Wilds spilled everything to tell the cops what they wanted to hear. Then Adnan was taken into an interview just to be convicted of the crime. Jay was taken in multiple times and his story was different every single time. In the 4th episode of our podcast, in Jay's first interview, he said, quote, "I did not help bury the body," end quote. But in the following interview, he said, quote, "I was not there when the body was buried," end quote. Jennifer, his interviewer, tells him he was associated with the burying, and then he replies and said, quote, "If I'm associated, I'm associated," end quote. Whoa. This is very, very wrong in several ways. This is one of the most important parts of the case, and he can just change the story from, "Oh yeah, I saw the body in the place it was buried," to, "I was never there." This is very fishy. Something is up with Jay. This is one of the many inconsistencies from places he was to time and people he was with. Let me ask you guys a question. If your friend were to murder someone and they showed you the body, would you forget the spot you first saw it? Jay did. In his first interview, he said, quote, "I went to pick him up off of Edmondson Avenue at the Strip, and he popped the trunk open and ... end quote. 2 weeks later, in an interview, Jay says, quote, "Adnan called him saying, quote, 'That bitch is dead, come get me, I'm at Best Buy,' quote, end quote." Something is going very terribly wrong in the justice system, and the police are just letting it slip through because they are buying what Jay is selling.
Jay Wilds was in hot water and chose to lie his way out of jail time because of how involved he was in the drug industry and running his business through his grandma's house. He was in the very bad spot in his life and could not carry the load of crimes he had committed down with the murder. He would have been in jail for a long time and would have never gotten out. Another podcast named Crime Junkies also covered Jay's inconsistencies and said a lot of valid points. And they said, when Dre dropped off Adnan at track practice, he said that he went back to his house, but his cell phone records from the cell towers say otherwise. Around this time, Hay was just killed and Jay started running around town instead of going back to his house and later lied to authorities saying he actually went back. Why would Jay have to lie for something as simple as going back to his house? This is very suspicious, making me thinking he is hiding something during this time. Something not pleasant, not one bit.
We decided to do some research of our own, and you won't believe what we found. Me and my team went to Edmondson Avenue, the place where Jay said he first saw the body, and we went looking around for pieces of evidence. We were out there for quite a while, until Tyler saw a red object sticking out of the ground.
Once I realized what I saw on the ground, I was in total disbelief. It was a pair of red gloves, and I remember in one of Jay's interviews him saying, quote, "He pulled into Best Buy, he saw Adnan at the phone booth there, and at the edge of the building wearing red gloves," end quote. We took the pair of red gloves to the authorities so they could run a DNA test on them, and the only match of DNA was Jay's.
2 weeks later, the authorities arrested Jay Wilds because of the evidence against him. There was an anonymous call stating that he was the one who killed Heyman Lee and that he was going to kill the caller for what he knew. As the trial was reopened, Jay Wilds pleaded guilty for the murder of Heyman Lee and was sentenced to life in prison. Adnan was released from the Maryland Correctional Facility and sued that state for wrongly putting him in jail for 20 years.
From TKC Radio live from Atlanta, this is Serial. Thank you for tuning in every week on this long journey as we finally wrap up this podcast. Stay tuned for next season as we open up a new case.